we're going to actually figure out why. All right, why did we do all that? Okay, why did we do all that? And that brings us to these. All right, so I have a unit circle, right? And if I asked you guys to evaluate each of these, right? I'm going to show you guys one way that you can do it. All right. And then I'll show you a different way as well. Okay. All right. So 30 degrees, right? So what I want to do for each of these, right? And this is just getting us into the lesson, sort of. I'm going to show you guys why this is the long way of doing things. Okay. Eventually. But I want to figure out what sine of 30 is. And do you guys have enough room? I'm going to do this, guys, on a. I'm going to do this on a. Come on, man. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. There it goes. All right. You guys have the pictures on the previous page to look at, okay? I'm not going to keep flipping back and forth. So what I'm going to wind up doing is doing some of these notes on this. But it'll be on the recording, and I'll put the final answers on the note page. Put this here, put this here. Okay, sine of 30. All right, so where is 30 degrees going to put me? In quadrant number 1. Now, do you guys agree that that is my 30-degree angle? No doubt about it, right? Okay, now what I'm going to do is put a point that's on my unit circle. So if I was to actually draw my unit circle in, it would look something like that, would it not? Brandon, how far is it from here to here? All right, very good. So he's got this down. That's 1. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from that point, I'm going to drop down to create a 90-degree angle, right? So across from my 30-degree angle, which is right here, based on yesterday, if I go across from the 30, how long is this? A half. What was the other side? Radical 3 over 2. All right, so I had a student stay after yesterday, and that student said, well, Mr. Picard, I'm okay creating this, but I'm not sure how to label this point. Well, guys, if I start at the origin, how do I get to that point? I go left or right? I go to the right. How far do I go to the right? This far, right? Then I go up. How far do I go up? Half a unit. Now, because I went to the right and up, those were both positive directions, correct? So this point here is the point, radical 3 over 2, comma, 1/2. All right. Now, on the previous page, what did I say, guys? I said that sine of theta is equal to what? X or Y? Is equal to Y. Well, what is the Y coordinate here, guys? 1/2. So that's your solution. Sine of 30 is equal to half. So there was a bunch of skills that we had to put together to do that problem, right? We had to do a reference angle, right? We had to build the triangle. We had to label the sides, right? So there was a lot that was going on. 240. Where's 240 going to put me? Well, I'm going to go this direction. So this is 0, this is 90, this is 180, this is 270. So 240's got to put me over here. All right. What would be my reference? What would be my reference angle? Where do I want to go? Do I want to keep going all the way around or go back to the 180? Back to the 180. How far is it to go back to the 180? 60 degrees. So if I had my circle, I got this point right here. How far is it from the center to this point? 1 unit. So I'm going to go from that point back to the x-axis, right? There's my 90-degree angle. What's the missing angle have to be? That's got to be 30, right? If I go across from my 30, this is my 1/2. If I go across from my 60, that's my radical 3/2. All right, I want to label this point now, right? How do I get to that point from the center? I go left or right? I go left. How far do I go left? 1/2, but since I went left, it's negative 1/2. And then I have to go down, which means that I have to go down, how far? Negative radical 3/2. And what did I say about sine? Sine is equal to the y value. Well, what's the y value here? Negative radical 3/2. Is that cool? All right. Then we talked about cosine of 90, right? We said this was kind of a weird one, didn't we? Because where does 90 put me? It puts me on the axis, right? I gave it a special name. What do I call that? Start with a Q. Quadrantal. Yeah, that was quadrantal. So I have this being my reference angle, but it's not really a reference angle because it's on the quadrant. But this one's really, really easy, guys, because do I really have to build a triangle to know what that point is? Yes or no? No. What's that point, guys? 0, 1. That point 0, 1. And I wanted cosine of 90, correct? Well, what is the cosine value? And in this case, what is the value of the x? It's 0. But cosine of 90 equals 0. Guys, if I did cosine of 180 then, right? Do I need to draw a new picture? No, cosine of 180 is going to put me right on this point. What's that point? Negative 1, 0, right? And what is the x value here? Negative 1. All right, let's go over here. Oh, hey, check it out. Sine of 90. Do I need another picture for that? No, 90 is right here, correct? Which of these values is sine, x or y? The y value. So what's the y value? 1, right? We can do this last one really easily, can't we? Cosine of 0 puts me on this point, and this point is 1, oh, I don't know why I did that. And this point is 1, 0, right? So cosine is the x or the y? The x. So the x value is 1. All right, guys, can you get on board with the fact that this isn't a really difficult skill, but you kind of got to like study a little bit for this, don't you? Like you got to know the 30, 60, 90 triangle and what goes across from what. You got to know the 45, 45, 90 triangle and what goes across from what, right? If you don't know those two things, it sort of messes you up. You got to know that sine goes with the y value. You got to know that cosine goes with the x value. Hey, guys, you know what's a really easy way to remember that, by the way? What letter comes first in the alphabet, x or y? X. What comes first in the alphabet? Cosine or sine? Cosine. So cosine comes first, so it pairs with the x, right? Sine comes second, so it pairs with the y. All right, easy way to remember that. Okay, good. Take that off your plate. You don't have to study that, okay? But the 30, 60, 90, and the 45, 45, 90, you got to know, okay? You got to know those. All right, sine of 135, okay? So 135, here's 0, 90, 180, 135 is going to put me in that spot, correct? Now, to get to my reference angle, do I want to go to the 180 or back to the 0? I want to go to the 180. So how far is it to go from 135 to 180? It's 45 degrees. So here is my unit circle. Straight down. This is 1. That's my right angle. If that's 45, that's 45. And what does the 45, 45 get? It gets a radical 2 over 2. All right, well, what did I want here? Well, I wanted to know sine, so I need to know the y value of this point, right? Well, how do I get to this point? Starting here, I go to the left, radical 2 over 2, negative radical 2 over 2, and then I go up. So it's going to be negative radical 2 over 2, comma, positive radical 2 over 2. And the sine value correlates to the x or the y? To the y value. So it's positive radical 2 over 2. Now, guys, here's the deal, right? All of these can be done on the calculator. So in a lot of respects, this is a total waste of time. However, there are skills within this that you have to be able to do in order to sort of move on in math, okay? The other thing is this, guys. Would the calculator ever show me this answer? No, it's going to show me a decimal, right? Because why is it never going to show me this? This is an irrational solution. Radical 2 is irrational, right? So this is an exact answer. Using a calculator, I'll never get the exact answer. Cosine of 150? $180, 0, 90, 150. All right, where am I going to go? Am I going to go to the 180 or the 0? I'm going to go to the 180. How far is it to go there? 30 degrees. So there's my 30. There's my point. There's my drop. There's my 90. That's got to be 1. Where's the 1/2 going to go? On the red or the blue? On the what? On the red, good. And then this is my radical 3 over 2. All right, so I just got to memorize that. I just got to remember what goes where. And really, I mean, I hate to like make life like too easy for you guys, but you really just got to remember one thing. If you just remember what goes across from the 30, everything else should be pretty obvious, right? Okay, so what is this point? This is the point. How do I get there? Left or right? So what's the first coordinate? Negative, comma, positive 1/2, right? And I wanted cosine, so I want the x value. So negative radical 3 over 2. Seemingly making some sense as to why we did what we did yesterday now, right? So we did what we did yesterday so that we can gather all of these exact solutions, okay? All right, so now I get to some like wordy stuff, okay? Now I get to some wordy stuff. The terminal ray, drawn in standard position, passes through the point blank, which lies on the unit circle. Which of the following gives the value of sine? So guys, this is a little bit different, right? But what we want to do is see if we can draw the picture to understand what's going on. So they said that there's a terminal ray that goes through the point negative 0.6 and 0.8. Well, negative 0.6, 0.8 would put me here. And it said that there's a terminal ray that goes through it. It also said that that point lies on the unit circle. It's on the unit circle, right? Oops, do that, Picardo. There it is. All right, so there's the unit circle. So right away, I can actually label something, right? I can label the radius as 1. So we have that. Which of the following gives the value of sine? Well, can you guys tell me what this point right here is? It's the point negative 0.6, comma 0.8. And they wanted to know what's the value of sine. Well, what does sine go with? X or Y. So it's 0.8. All right, guys, this right here, super important. Super important, okay? In this quadrant, every single point in this quadrant is going to have what values for X and Y? In quadrant number 1, what is every point going to have for X and Y? Positive values. Do you guys agree that that has to be true? Every point is going to be positive and positive. How about in this quadrant? What are those points going to be? Well, how do I get there? I go to the left and then I go up. So what are all the points here going to be? Negative and positive. True? Okay. How about in this quadrant? How do I get here? I go to the left and I go down. So what? Negative and negative. And in the fourth quadrant, what is everything going to be here? I go to the right and I go down. Positive and negative. Well, guys, what that does is it actually tells me a lot about sine and cosine. What do I know about sine and cosine in this quadrant? The answer is always going to be what? Positive. Sine and cosine are always positive in that first quadrant. How about in the third quadrant? They're both what? They're both negative. How about in quadrant number 2? Which of these is positive, sine or cosine? Sine is positive, cosine is negative. And in the last quadrant, cosine is positive, sine is negative. Now, right now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, Picardo, that's a cute little tidbit, thank you. But what's your point, right? What's your point? Don't you guys agree that I'm duplicating a process over and over and over and over and over and over and over again when I draw those triangles on the unit circle? I'm getting all the same points. What's just changing? Yeah, so the degree, so I'm going 35, 45, or 60. But in terms of the answers of the coordinates as I go around the circle, they're all the same values. They're either what? They're either 0, 1, radical 2 over 2, 1/2, or radical 3 over 2, correct? But what's changing as they go around the circle? Some of them are positive and some of them are negative. Well, wouldn't it be really, really nice just to remember one set of facts, right? And then apply the positive or negatives depending on which quadrant I'm in. Wouldn't that make it easier than drawing out this circle every single time? It would, wouldn't it? Right? So why am I sharing that with you? For the following reason. What I want you guys to do, and I need you to add this somewhere. Don't actually, yeah, just find like a little space, guys, in your notes. And what I'm going to show you guys is a cool little trick, okay? Because drawing those triangles and doing that every single time seems kind of redundant. We still need to be able to do this, guys, but it's a little redundant. So what I want you to add is a little chart. All need to take me to write that out there. About 30 seconds, right? Okay. I also want you to write this down. Everybody got that? Guys, I also want you to remember this. Ready? That list of answers that we got on the previous page. If the answer wasn't 0 or 1, it was a fraction, right? What was the bottom? What was the denominator of all the fractions? What was the denominator of all the fractions? 2, right? It was 1/2, or radical 2 over 2, or radical 3 over 2, correct? So what I want you to do now in your chart, I want you to write fractions with 2's on the bottom. What is the square root of 1? 1, right? You guys agree with that? So do you agree? Ready? Listen, I'm going to get super creative on you guys. Ready? Do you agree that the answers that I had 1/2, I had radical 3 over 2, and I had radical 2 over 2. Do you agree instead of saying 1/2, I could have said radical 1 over 2? Same thing, right? So what I want you to do now, I want you to put radicals on top of all these. Okay, so far, guys, anything really complex about what I've done? Okay, over here, what do I have? I have a unit circle, right? With the 4 points drawn. Everybody agree with that? Over here, I have 30, 45, and 60. Everything's over a 2 with radicals. Okay, ready? Watch this, B. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. So, you want to see what you just figured out? Check this out. Guys, what is sine of 60? Radical 3 over 2. Agreed? Okay. What is cosine of 45? Radical 2 over 2. Okay, ready? What is sine of 180? 180 puts me where? Over here. Sine is which one of these? 0. Right? Because it's the y value. Right? What is cosine of 360? 1. Because cosine is the x value. Okay, so not right now, you're like, okay, great, Picardo, you gave me all the answers to the quadrantal ones. Those are easy. And things that are in quadrant 1. Great. Yippee. Watch this. Okay. On the previous questions, I had you guys do something like sine of 135, right? We did sine of 135. So watch this. Sine of 135. Everybody agrees that that puts me in that quadrant. Yes? Can everybody, the very first thing we did in this unit was reference angles, right? Was it easy to do reference angles? What's the reference angle of 135? 45. So I know the reference angle is 45. Okay, ready? This is where it gets super easy now. I want to know sine of 45. Sine of 45 is radical 2 over 2. Okay, one more thing we got to figure out though. Is my answer going to be positive or negative? Well, I'm in this quadrant, right? What letter's there? An S. Guess what that means? It means sine is positive. Okay, hold that thought. Hold that thought. Isn't that what we got when we did that problem? Okay, now, if we did, we'll do one more. Let's do cosine of 150. All right, so cosine of 150 puts me right here. Quickly, what's the reference angle? Everybody? 30. Okay, so I want to look at cosine of 30, right? So I'm going to look at cosine of 30. Well, what is cosine of 30? Radical 3 over 2? In this quadrant, what's positive? What letter is there? S. So what do you think is positive? Sine. What do you think cosine is? Negative. Okay, ready? Here's where I'm going to put everything together. These letters, A, S, T, C. Here's a saying I want you guys to remember. All students take classes. All students take classes. All students take classes. And what does that do? That tells you what is positive. This tells you what's positive, right? That's going to tell you what's positive. So what does that mean? That means in quadrant number 1, everything is positive. In quadrant number 2, only sine. In quadrant number 3, something called tangent. We haven't talked about that yet. And in quadrant number 4, what's positive? Only cosine. And so this little chart here, guys, can help you do these problems rather quickly. Cool? All right. All right. No, I want to get this part done here. And then we'll be done. Guys, these are simply problems that force you to create pictures, all right, using the information that we've already done, okay? Where did that go? All right, there we go. So let's try to draw our picture. Ready? It says for any theta, there's a terminal ray that falls in the second quadrant. All right, so there is an angle that falls in the second quadrant. It is known that sine of theta equals 3/5. I want to know the value of cosine of theta. All right, first thing I want you guys to tell me, ready? All students take classes. Guys, look at the value for sine. Sine of theta equaled 3/5, right? Are you surprised that this is a positive answer if this is my, not surprised, because what's positive in this quadrant? Sine. So what do I know about my answer? My answer has to be negative. My answer has to be negative. Now, second question. Yesterday I gave you guys a saying. So, ka, tella. What two letters referenced sine? Sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. So here I have a terminal ray, right? So were I to drop this down, I'd have this. Could I draw a picture that has an opposite side that is 3 units long? Well, here's my angle, right? So if I go opposite, this is 3, right? The hypotenuse is how long? 5 long. Everybody cool so far? Now, I want to know the value of cosine. What's the ratio for cosine? What was the ka? Adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, do I know the adjacent side? Do I know the side next to the theta? Yeah, that's 5, right? What's the issue? I don't know the length of the, well, this is actually not the adjacent, is it? That's the hypotenuse, isn't it? Because it's across from the 90-degree angle. Okay, yeah, so I don't know that value. How would I get that value? Pythagorean theorem, yeah. So if I want to know the value of this, right? So I have 3 squared plus 5 squared equals x squared. I got the square root of 34. So that represents the value of x, right? So what is my solution to this, guys? Well, it's the adjacent side, which is of length 5, over the hypotenuse, which we just calculated to be the square root of 34. Guys, would that ever be like a multiple choice answer? Would they ever put that as an answer? The answer is no. Why would that never be a solution? What's wrong with that? There's a radical in the bottom, right? So we would have to rationalize that. Okay, we would have to rationalize that. 24, right? Similar problem, except they said the terminal ray falls in which quadrant? Quadrant number 1. There's my point, there's my drop, there's my angle. Now, anybody surprised that cosine equals positive 1/3? Why not? Because what's positive in the first quadrant? Everything. So what's my answer going to be? Positive. So I know that my answer is going to be a positive something. I don't know what, but positive something. What was my ratio for cosine again? My ratio was A over H. Well, in this picture, based on what I was given, the length of A is 1, the length of H is 3. Which one of those should I label first? Which one should I label first? I always like labeling the hypotenuse first, right? So the hypotenuse is of length 3. The one adjacent to is the one that's next to it, right? Because the one across from it's the opposite one, right? So this is my length 1, and this is the one I got to find. And it's going to be the exact same process, guys, as using the Pythagorean theorem. In this case, it's a little bit different because I know my hypotenuse, so that has to be my value for C. Square root of 8. My ratio for sine is opposite over hypotenuse, right? Because of the so. So if I go to my circle, what's the O? What's the opposite? The x, right? The radical 8. And the hypotenuse was 3. Positive radical 8/3. Cool? Take a minute and see if you can set up the next one. Guys, this is a little bit different. Let's see if you can set it up anyways. Certainly hope so. What am I going to label the bottom of this triangle? How long is that? 5. How about the left side of the triangle? 12. Can you get me the length of the missing side now? Of course, right? So it's going to be 5 squared plus 12 squared equals x squared. And what do they want me to find, guys? They want me to find the value for cosine? What do I know? It's negative. It's definitely negative, right? So it's negative. Okay, and what is my ratio? It's negative a over h. So what's the h? Well, we just calculated it, right? It's 13. And what's the side adjacent? This is the one that people have the hardest time with. Well, it's the one that's not opposite. Well, what's opposite? 12 is opposite, so adjacent must be the 5. So I have negative 5/13.